Hi to all my new book loving friends. So excited to everyone that's been subscribing lately. Kind of blown away by it. Hope to get to know everyone, and I hope you're enjoying what you're finding here. Today I'm going to do a tag, evolution of a reader tag. And I was tagged by Alan over on Big Hard Books and Classics in my first official tag. I got to get used to this tagging thing. I just clicked on that mentions and realized that I was tagged, and I was like, oh my gosh, what is this? So yeah. This book tag, The Evolution of a Reader, was originally created by Jack over at Spread Book Joy. She has a great story about how her reading has changed over the years too, so be sure and go check her out also. There's only a few questions on this tag about our reading habits, how they've changed, kind of our history of reading, and so this is basically one big long story time. I do feel like it's just kind of my story of being a reader and how it's changed over the years, so I thought that'd be kind of fun, and since I'm new, it will be something that will help everyone get to know me, so that will be awesome. So the first question is what you read, or how has your taste in books changed and evolved? The very first thing that I remember actually devouring was the Little House on the Prairie books, Little House in the Big Woods it starts with, and I was probably around 8 or 9 years old when I read those. And that was the first thing I remember being very into and like wanting to learn everything about it and thinking about it when I wasn't reading it. And then it just went from there. And I remember as a teenager going to the library. I remember once my dad randomly picking off a book from the shelf, and it was called The Enchanted Cup by Dorothy somebody. I can't remember now for sure the author, but it was a retelling of the Tristan and Isolde legend, which I absolutely loved. And that opened up the realization that you can pick anything off of the library shelf and you might like it. You might not, but you might love it. You might find undiscovered things there. Another big turning point was when I was around 12, I think. We went on a family camping trip with a huge extended family of lots of cousins that I didn't know. And there was a guy that was my dad's cousin who was a librarian, I think. And my dad said to him, she needs books to read. Give her a list. Do you have some recommendations? And he wrote down this on a piece of paper, all these books. And they, I think, were some Newbery Award winners around that time. It was probably the mid-70s. And so I remember reading like Julie of the Wolves and Island of the Blue Dolphins and From the Mixed Up Files of Mrs. Basil E. Frankweiler. And that was the coolest thing to me, that this guy could just think of this whole list of awesome books. And I went and read all of them and was completely enamored of the fact that that there were so many good books. Like, it just kind of blew my mind. Okay, so now the other thing that happens is the Scholastic Book Fair. When I was a kid, that was huge, and my mom would always let us buy books. That opened up my world to a whole bunch of other things also. So I just remember reading all the regular like kids chapter books, and then discovering like historical fiction and mystery books when I was a teenager. When I was in high school, that's when I fell in love with classics. I loved all the assigned books that we had to read. I didn't freak out about any of them like some people do, and I fell in love with all of them basically, and then discovered that I loved classics. I don't remember reading a whole lot of extra when I was in high school. I'm sure I did. When I was in college, I don't remember reading a whole lot of extra either. Like, college is kind of a blur as far as what I read. But then when I first got married, I was very into going to the library. That's just the city library. And I remember sometimes even walking there. It was quite a ways away, and I would walk there if I didn't have the car that day. And I distinctly remember that I wanted to start at the A's and read every single thing in their fiction collection. It was a real thing that I thought I could do, because this library was kind of small at the time. It's huge now, but they actually had their paperback books on those spinny turny things, you know, like 3 different carousel things, and I would just go through all those. And I discovered Orson Scott Card and Ray Bradbury. Those were huge ones that I remember getting into at that time. And Anya Seton also, I think. We moved, and then I started going to the library that I go to now, and the one that I actually have worked at for 15 years, and started going through their fiction collection. I was loving, like I said, science fiction and historical fiction and historical romance especially. What else was I reading at that time? Those were my favorites probably. Then I started having kids. This was during the 90s. I call this my lost decade because I did not know anything that was going on in anything, movies, books, TV shows, I was just doing kids. And I'm sure I was reading stuff, but I don't remember what it was. I don't remember what I was getting into. So that was another big, huge chunk. I was probably more into picture books and kid things, right? Towards the end of the 90s is when the internet came into our lives. And I discovered that you could go on there and join a chat room and talk about a specific subject. So this was mind-blowing to me. So I joined a book club on AOL, an AOL chat room when we first got the internet, and started devouring books again. We would choose a book a month and then we would discuss it, and there was all these people who loved reading, and I felt so unalone. It blew my mind that I wasn't as crazy a book person as I thought I was, that there was other people out there like that. So that was a huge, huge, huge turning point in what I read, how I read also. Tons of classics. So that went on for a few years. And then people started doing the blogging thing, which finally I joined in around 2006. And then that completely changed everything I read. And at that point, I started embracing the fact that I love to read. Before that, I felt like I had to hide it. And I felt like people thought I was weird. Literally felt that I couldn't talk about loving books. So, except for this online place. But when I started blogging, I decided to tell people. It became huge in my life, and blogging made my reading skyrocket. I knew everything that was going on in the book world. I felt like I knew what all the buzz was. And so that lasted about 10 years, another 10-year chunk. And I was reading everything. And that's when I started reading more, maybe literary fiction stuff. And I discovered YA novels. Before that, when I was in YA myself, there wasn't really such a thing. When I started blogging was when YA novels kind of became huge, and I loved them. Loved, and I still do now. That has not changed. It's probably one of my favorite things. I just exploded with probably just trying to read everything. 2016, my life changed again when I found another passion, and reading ended up dropping. So before that, I was reading around 80 to 100 books a year. And then when my new passion came into my life, now at night, I wanted to watch K-dramas instead of read. And they fulfilled the exact same niche in my life that books did as far as stories and characters and stuff like that. So the K-dramas happened, and my book reading amount fell in half to about 40 or 50 a year. That's kind of the space I'm still in right now, except now I've started this Booktube thing, which means I feel like I am hitting another turning point where I want to bring books back in. I want to try to read more than that a year. I want to start getting a feel for what's the new thing, and so I want to get back into that again. So I'm hoping that Booktube is the next turning point as far as what I'm reading and how I'm reading it, and how much I'm reading, and how much I'm into what's going on. So that's my big long spiel about my reading history and my evolution of how everything's changed over the years. I've definitely had some huge turning points. The next question is, has the format of your reading changed much? I do read a lot of Kindle. I read both Kindle and print books. I do not do audiobooks. The only thing that's changed that way is when Kindle came into our lives, which I can't even remember what year that was. Does anybody remember? But I do remember thinking that it was the stupidest thing I'd ever heard of, and there was no way. And then about a year later, I got my Kindle, my first Kindle. And I was like, okay, never mind. This is pretty much the coolest thing I've ever seen. And the fact that you can carry around your entire library practically, and you don't have to haul books everywhere, and you can read in the dark, and you don't bother people because you've got your screen is lit up. So I have embraced the Kindle reading for sure. I do both. I'm happy however I can get my hands on a book. And sometimes Kindle is fun because I like to support independent authors, and oftentimes it's way easier to get their books for the Kindle. So, but I don't do audiobooks because they make me sleepy. When I'm doing something where I want to listen to stuff, I would rather music. I want music in the car. I want music when I'm cleaning. I want music when I'm doing the dishes. I want music when I'm going to sleep at night. Music is huge in my life. So I feel like if I did audiobooks, there would be less music, and I'm not willing to do less music. So also, like I say, my mind wanders when I listen to audiobooks, and then I'm like, what? I don't even know what just happened. So I have a struggle with that one. So, and I know that if I did audiobooks, my reading amount would go up like big time, but I haven't quite figured it out how to fit that into my life. So how much you read? Do you read more or less? When and how often? So I kind of have talked about that. I didn't read very much when I was doing little kids, and then when I was doing the blogging and my kids were around teenager-ish, I read a ton. And I don't know how I did that because my life was crazy busy with those kids still. And now that the kids are all grown up, I don't know how to fit in more reading again like I did when they were still here in the house. So it's because I'm doing YouTube channels and editing takes up so much time, and making these videos takes up time. So I feel like being a YouTuber does cut into the reading time quite a bit. I'm reading less than I used to, and I'm reading and not as often. Okay, so that being said, I feel like it's very rare when a day goes by that I don't read something. I'm still there where reading has to be part of my day, but it's just not like it used to be. But I need to find a balance, and I'm always struggling to find a balance so that I can do all the things, so that I can edit and film and do YouTube for both channels and read and watch the K-dramas. So it's always a struggle, but my reading definitely has evolved over the years and through in and out of, what's going on in my life and other passions that come in. The last question is, how has Booktube changed you? And like I said, I'm still brand new at Booktube, so it hasn't totally changed me yet. But one of the reasons I'm jumping into it is because I hope that it does. And I hope that I can find the passion for books again like I had before, and be on board with what's going on and just jump right into it again. I hope that it changes me and that it kind of helps balance out all the things that I love doing, and that we will jump right back in and find the happy medium again. There's that. I don't know if I will tag anybody specifically, but I think it would be awesome if you want to do this, just to go ahead and answer these questions. Let me know what your history and evolution of reading is, and if you want to tag me when you do answer it so that I can make sure and see it and come and watch it. That would be awesome. And thank you so much to Alan for tagging me and making me feel like I am getting to be part of this community, feeling like I'm hopefully fitting in a little bit. And once again, thanks to everyone who's been subscribing. It's been so much fun to see that people are liking especially my library videos. So if you guys haven't seen that yet, please make sure to go and watch that. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do that, and I will be back later with lots more content. In the meantime, happy reading. See you next time. Bye.